Hello and welcome to the weekly news rundown on the Insider TV YouTube. My name is Piera Nyaruai and I am your host. These are the stories that made our headlines today on Tuesday, 26 September 2023. In his address to the United Nations General Assembly on Thursday last week, South Sudan's President General Salva Kiir called on the United Nations Security Council to lift arms embargo imposed on the country in 2015 following violations of human rights, international humanitarian law, targeting of civil society, journalists, and NGO workers. President Kiir made the remarks in a week that saw gunfire shots in a Malakal market in Upper Nile and an SSPDF helicopter shooting innocent civilians in Pochala County in Pibor administrative area. South Sudan has the highest proportion of out-of-school children in the world, with 2.8 million children being out of school, 53% of them being girls. That's about 1.4 million, according to the 2023 UNICEF report. Poverty, conflict, financial barriers, and natural disasters such as floods and droughts have hindered access to education for many young women in South Sudan. While addressing delegates at the 78th UN General Assembly UNGA on Thursday, President Salva Kiir said his government provides free primary and secondary education and banned children marriage across the country, a policy he says has led to the enrollment of about 2.3 million children in schools across South Sudan. The UNMISS Chief Haysom says there are key questions that need to be answered for the proposed 2024 general elections to take place. These include the type of elections to be held, voter registration requirements, how electoral boundaries will be determined, and the nature and participation of refugees and internally displaced people, the allocation of security responsibilities, and how electoral-related disputes will be managed. Haysom believes that resolving these questions does not require material resources, but rather only the political reach to reach a consensus. Rachel Juan, a civil society activist, has asked the United Nations Security Council and the world not to give up on South Sudan and its people because she is confident that South Sudan will eventually attain peace that the citizens deeply long for. She was speaking at the United Nations Security Council Summit at the UN headquarters in New York via a video conference. The landmark skyscraper in Khartoum was engulfed in flames. Videos posted online on Sunday last week showed the iconic Greater Nile Petroleum Oil Company tower engulfed in flames. Tagreed Abdin, an architect of the building, described the fire as truly painful in his Twitter post. Airstrikes and ground battles have continued in Khartoum and other towns and cities since fighting broke out in April this year. Over 1 million people have been forced to flee the country by the UN, as the UN has said. By 5th September 2023, more than 260,000 people had arrived in South Sudan seeking protection and safety, says the Director of Operations and Advocacy at the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, Edem Worsonu. Central Equatoria State Governor Emmanuel Adil fired acting mayor of Juba City Council Emmanuel Khamis days after a video in which he appeared to violently slap a female vendor at the 7th day roundabout trended on social media, forcing lawmakers in parliament to demand his immediate sacking. Governor Adil has since directed Martin Wani, the Juba City Council's chief officer, to assume the duties of the office of the mayor on a temporary basis until a new mayor is appointed. In sports, the South Sudanese women's football team, the Bright Starlets, lost away to the Egyptian football women's team by 8-0. In related news, two South Sudanese FIFA and CAF female referees who were involved in this month's Women Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers matches that played over the weekend. FIFA and CAF South Sudanese Center referee Doni Joseph Simon and Jane Charles Ladu, who are both in DRC, took charge of the match between Homeside and DR Congo and Benin on Friday last week. That's all we have for you this week at the Insider News Weekly Rundown, and we hope to see you next week. I've been your host, Piera Nyaruai. Bye.